Look, the Labor Party's climate change bill aimed at legislating a 2030 43% reduction in carbon dioxide emissions as compared to 2005 levels. As you are aware, I'm sure, the legislation has passed the lower house of the Australian Parliament. A long way to go yet, though. In one sense, the Albanese government and its ideological supporters are right. This will transform the economy and industry, but not the kind of transformation they're talking about. This will prove disastrous. Nonetheless, the fact that there is legislation, not yet in law, has now inspired the woke corporates to join the climate alarmists, Westpac. Why would you bank with them? They have released a raft of new emissions targets for 2030 and proudly announced that they've signed the United Nations convened Net Zero Banking Alliance. Now stay with me, because this is about you. All of this is done without any explanation to the borrower or the voter or the farmer who might need finance. What hoops are you going to have to jump through to qualify for a loan? Back to Westpac and its mates, inspired by the Labor government's commitment to reduce emissions by 43% by 2030, and indeed, Labor projects that renewable energy will lift to 80% of electricity supply at least by 2030. 80%, some say 82%. It's currently less than 30. But the woke and the bedwetters are on the climate change bandwagon. They were there in Glasgow, falling over themselves about the scourge of carbon dioxide emissions, but parked their jets at the airport on their way to practising their hypocrisy. The point I want to make is this, before I illustrate the concern. No one has told us how they'll get to 43% or 80% renewables, who's going to be punished, and what will be the form of the punishment. Remember, as I've said, electricity generation constitutes only 32% of these carbon dioxide much despised emissions. Emissions from agriculture represent 14%, transport 15%. Well, now Rishi Sunak is a candidate for the Prime Ministership of Britain, as you know. He was at that Glasgow conference as the Chancellor last November. And as Chancellor, he pledged action. He didn't urge it. He pledged it to, quote, rewire the entire financial system for net zero, unquote. What will that mean for people, not just in electricity generation, but in agriculture or transport and in everyday life? Never mentioned by Bowen or Albanese. Westpac, we're told, are the last bank to join the United Nations convened Net Zero Banking Alliance. What we haven't been told is that a stack of financial institutions have signed up to a, quote, Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero. They collectively hold assets, these financial institutions, worth over $130 trillion. Trillion. The then British Chancellor Sunak, hoping to be Prime Minister, but he won't be, described this financial alliance for net zero as, quote, an historic wall of capital for the net zero transition around the world. Now, we've been told none of this. The bloke behind all of this is the former Governor of the Bank of England, Mark Carney, who said in October 2019, listen to the blackmail, quote, firms that align their business models to the transition to a net zero world will be rewarded handsomely. Those who fail to adapt will cease to exist, unquote. Get those words? Those who fail to adapt, could be you, will cease to exist. In other words, you won't get the money.